A luxurious modern hospital room at night with soft lighting casting a warm glow. In the center of the frame is a pregnant woman lying unconscious on a hospital bed, connected to monitors and an IV drip. Her husband, a tall man in his late 30s, wearing an expensive suit, stands beside her, looking worried and clutching her hand. A group of doctors and nurses are gathered around the bed, discussing something urgently. The atmosphere feels tense yet hopeful. Outside the large window behind them, the city skyline glows faintly under the moonlight, adding depth to the scene. Part 1, 1,000 Words. Marcus Kane paced nervously outside the hospital room. His expensive leather shoes clicked softly against the tiled floor as he moved back and forth like a caged animal. He had never felt so helpless in his life. Inside the room, his wife, Olivia, lay unconscious on the bed, hooked up to machines that beeped steadily. Her face was pale, almost ghostly, and she looked nothing like the vibrant woman who had laughed with him just hours ago. It had started earlier that evening. Marcus and Olivia were having dinner at their sprawling estate, a quiet moment amidst the chaos of his busy life. She was 8 months pregnant, glowing with the promise of new life. They talked about baby names, nursery colors, and what kind of parents they wanted to be. Everything seemed perfect until Olivia suddenly clutched her stomach and gasped. Before Marcus could react, she collapsed onto the floor. Panic set in immediately. Marcus called for help, his voice shaking as he dialed 911. Within minutes, paramedics arrived, rushing Olivia into an ambulance while Marcus followed close behind in his car. The drive to the hospital felt like an eternity. His mind raced with questions. What happened? Was it something she ate? Could it be related to the pregnancy? At the hospital, doctors worked quickly to stabilize Olivia. Blood tests were taken. Scans were done, but no one could figure out what was wrong. Poisoning was suspected, but without knowing the exact toxin, treatment options were limited. Marcus sat in the waiting area, his head in his hands, feeling utterly powerless. He thought about calling someone, anyone, who might have answers. Then it hit him. Dr. Ava Monroe. He remembered reading about her groundbreaking work and experimental treatments years ago. Though she had stepped away from public life after a corporate scandal, rumors suggested she still conducted research privately. If anyone could help Olivia, it would be her. Without hesitation, Marcus pulled out his phone and made arrangements. His private jet was already fueled and ready to go. Within the hour, a team was dispatched to bring Dr. Monroe to the hospital. But when they reached her modest apartment downtown, they found that she wasn't there. Instead, they encountered Nia Carter, a young woman in her mid-20s who introduced herself as Dr. Monroe's assistant. Nia was unlike anyone Marcus expected. She wore simple clothes, a plain t-shirt and jeans, and carried herself with quiet confidence. Her dark skin contrasted sharply with the sterile white walls of the hospital when she arrived later that night. Despite her youth, there was something about her demeanor that commanded respect. Marcus approached her cautiously. "Are you here to help my wife?" he asked, his voice tinged with desperation. "I'm here because Dr. Monroe isn't," Nia replied calmly. "But yes, I can try to help." Relief washed over Marcus, but it was short-lived. Nia explained that she knew of a potential treatment, an experimental compound designed to counteract unknown toxins. However, synthesizing it would take time and precision. And there was another issue. "What do you need?" Marcus asked, willing to give anything to save Olivia. Nia hesitated before speaking. "Before I agree to help, you need to understand my terms." Marcus frowned. "Terms? Look, money isn't an issue. Name your price." "It's not about money," Nia said firmly. "If I save your wife, you have to shut down Project Genesis." The words hung in the air between them. Marcus stared at her, stunned. Project Genesis was one of his company's flagship initiatives, a cutting-edge program developing AI-driven surveillance systems. It had attracted millions in investment and positioned him as a leader in tech innovation. Shutting it down would mean losing not only financially, but also credibility. "Why does it matter to you?" Marcus asked, trying to keep his tone even. Naya crossed her arms. Because I've seen what happens when technology like that falls into the wrong hands. People get hurt, innocent people. You think it's just about catching criminals, but it goes deeper than that. It ruins lives. Her word struck a nerve. Marcus thought about the countless reports he'd ignored, stories of wrongful arrests, privacy violations, families torn apart. He had always told himself it wasn't his problem, that the benefits outweighed the risks. But now, standing here with his wife fighting for her life, he couldn't ignore the truth anymore. Fine, Marcus said finally. If you can save Olivia, I'll shut it down. Completely. Nia nodded, satisfied. Then let's get to work. As she walked toward the lab, Marcus watched her go, unsure whether to feel hope or dread. This young woman held his wife's fate in her hands and possibly his own future as well. Inside the lab, Nia wasted no time. She unpacked equipment borrowed from Dr. Monroe's facility and began preparing the necessary chemicals. Marcus hovered, nearby, watching intently as she worked. Every movement was deliberate, every calculation precise. Despite her calm exterior, he could see the intensity in her eyes. "You're really doing this alone?" Marcus asked after a while. Naya glanced up briefly. "I've been doing things alone for most of my life. This is no different." Her response intrigued him. "How did you end up working with Dr. Monroe?" She shrugged. "I taught myself biology and chemistry online. When I heard about her work, I reached out. Turns out she needed someone willing to learn and adapt quickly. That was me." Marcus listened quietly, realizing how much he didn't know about the world beyond his privileged bubble. Here was this young woman, brilliant and resourceful, who had overcome obstacles he couldn't even imagine. Hours passed as Nia worked tirelessly. The hospital staff came and went, checking on Olivia periodically. Reporters began gathering outside, drawn by whispers of a billionaire's pregnant wife falling mysteriously ill. Marcus shielded Nia from the commotion, ensuring she could focus without distractions. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Nia turned to him. "I'm ready to administer the compound, but we won't know if it works right away." Marcus nodded, steeling himself for whatever came next. Together they entered Olivia's room. Nia carefully injected the solution into Olivia's IV line, then stepped back to monitor the results. For several agonizing minutes, nothing happened. Then, slowly Olivia's vitals began to improve. Her breathing steadied and color returned to her cheeks. Marcus exhaled sharply, tears welling up in his eyes. "She's going to be okay," Nia said softly. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Marcus turned to thank her. But Nia simply smiled and walked away, disappearing into the night without asking for anything more. As Marcus sat beside Olivia's bedside holding her hand, he realized how much had changed in such a short time. Not just for Olivia, but for him too. Nia Carter wasn't used to being the center of attention. Growing up, she had always been the quiet one, the girl who stayed in the background while others took the spotlight. But now, as she stood in the hospital lab preparing to save Olivia, Kane's life, all eyes were on her. Marcus hovered nearby, watching her every move with a mix of hope and skepticism. Nurses peeked in occasionally, curious about what this young woman was doing that even the top doctors couldn't figure out. Despite the pressure, Nia remained calm. She knew exactly what needed to be done. Her years working alongside Dr. Ava Monroe had taught her how to think quickly and act decisively. More importantly, it had given her access to knowledge most people could only dream of. While other kids, her age, were playing video games or hanging out at the mall, Nia had spent hours reading scientific journals and teaching herself advanced chemistry. It wasn't easy, especially when you didn't have much money. But she had always believed that hard work would pay off someday, and today might just be that day. As she worked, Marcus finally broke the silence. "How did you learn all this?" he asked, gesturing vaguely toward the equipment spread across the table. Nia glanced up briefly before returning to her task. "I taught myself," she said simply. "When I was younger, I didn't have a lot of opportunities, so I made my own. There are free resources online if you know where to look. Marcus frowned. That must have been tough. It wasn't easy, Naya admitted, but I wanted it bad enough to push through. Science has always fascinated me. It's like solving puzzles, except the stakes are real lives. Her words lingered in the air between them. Marcus found himself staring at her, trying to reconcile the image of this unassuming young woman with the genius currently working to save his wife's life. He realized how little he knew about people like Nia, people who didn't come from privilege but still managed to achieve incredible things. "Why don't more people know about you?" Marcus asked after a moment. "If you're this talented, shouldn't you be running your own lab or something?" Nia chuckled softly, though there was no humor in it. "It's not that simple. People like me, we don't get invited to the big conferences or offered fancy grants. We do our work quietly because we love it, not because we expect recognition." Marcus nodded slowly, feeling a pang of guilt. He thought about all the times he'd dismissed someone's potential based on their appearance or background. Now, here was Nia proving him wrong in the most profound way possible. The two fell silent again as Nia continued her work. She carefully measured each ingredient, double-checking her calculations before adding anything to the mixture. One wrong step could mean disaster, not just for Olivia, but for everyone counting on her to succeed. "You seem confident," Marcus observed. "I have to be," Naya replied without looking up. "Doubt doesn't help anyone right now." Admired her focus. Most people would crumble under the weight of responsibility she was carrying, but Nia seemed almost unfazed. It occurred to Marcus that maybe she was used to shouldering burdens alone. After all, she'd mentioned growing up in foster care, a detail that stuck with him. What must it have been like for her, bouncing from home to home, never knowing if she truly belonged anywhere? "Do you ever feel scared?" Marcus asked suddenly. Nia paused, considering the question. "All the time," she admitted. "But fear doesn't stop me. If anything, it pushes me harder. Knowing that someone's life depends on me, it lights a fire inside." Her honesty struck a chord with Marcus. For so long, he'd lived a life insulated by wealth and privilege, shielded from the struggles most people faced daily. Now, standing here with Nia, he felt humbled in a way he hadn't expected. Finally, after what felt like hours, Naya stepped back from the table. In front of her sat a vial containing a clear liquid, the synthesized compound she hoped would save Olivia's life. "This is it," she said quietly, holding up the vial for Marcus to see. He stared at it, his heart pounding. "Will it work?" "There's only one way to find out," Nia replied. Together, they returned to Olivia's room. The monitors around her bed beeped steadily, tracking her vital signs. Nia approached cautiously, inserting the compound into Olivia's IV line. As the liquid entered her bloodstream, both Nia and Marcus held their breath. Minutes passed, each one feeling longer than the last. Then slowly Olivia's vitals began to stabilize. Her breathing deepened and color returned to her face. Marcus let out a shaky breath, tears welling up in his eyes. "She's going to be okay," Naya said softly, her voice filled with relief. Overwhelmed, Marcus turned to thank her, but Nia simply smiled and started packing up her things. "You don't want to stay?" Marcus asked, surprised. Nia shook her head. "My job here is done. Besides, I'm sure you'll want some privacy now." "But what about payment? I owe you everything." Naya paused, meeting his gaze. "You already paid me by agreeing to shut down Project Genesis. That's all I wanted." Before Marcus could respond, she slipped out of the room, leaving him alone with Olivia. As the night wore on, Marcus sat beside his wife's bed, holding her hand tightly. His mind kept drifting back to Nia, the way she carried herself, the determination in her eyes, the quiet strength she exuded. She had saved Olivia's life, yes, but she had also forced Marcus to confront uncomfortable truths about himself and the world he'd helped create. For the first time in years, Marcus felt a sense of clarity. He realized that true success wasn't measured by wealth or power. It was about making a difference in the lives of others. And thanks to Nia, he now had the chance to do just that. Outside, dawn began to break, casting a soft golden light over the city. Somewhere out there, Nia Carter was walking away, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Marcus didn't know what the future held for her, or for himself, but one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, Marcus Kane woke up feeling like a different person. He had spent hours sitting beside Olivia's hospital bed, watching her sleep peacefully now that the danger had passed. Relief washed over him every time he looked at her, but it was mixed with something else: guilt. Guilt for not seeing the harm caused by Project Genesis sooner. Guilt for ignoring the voices of those who tried to warn him. And guilt for letting his ambition blind him to the consequences of his actions. As Olivia rested, Marcus returned to his penthouse apartment to begin the process of shutting down Project Genesis. It wasn't going to be easy. The project had been years in the making, costing millions in research and development. Investors were already asking questions and shareholders would demand answers. But none of that mattered anymore. Nia Carter had saved his wife's life, and in return, she had asked him to do the right thing. He owed it to her, and to himself, to follow through. Sitting at his desk, Marcus stared at the termination notice in front of him. Signing it meant more than just ending a program. It meant admitting failure. Admitting that he had let greed and arrogance cloud his judgment. For a moment, doubt crept in. What if shutting down Project Genesis hurt innocent people? What if the technology could still be used for good if managed properly? But then he remembered Nia's words. People get hurt. Innocent people. She hadn't been speaking hypothetically. She had seen firsthand how surveillance systems like Project Genesis disproportionately targeted marginalized communities. Families torn apart. Lives ruined. All in the name of progress. Marcus sighed heavily and picked up his pen. With a steady hand, he signed the document. As soon as the ink dried, he emailed it to his legal team with instructions to halt all operations, immediately. Then he drafted a public statement explaining his decision. He didn't sugarcoat anything. Instead, he admitted his mistakes and took full responsibility for the harm caused by Project Genesis. I built this company on innovation, he wrote. But somewhere along the way, I lost sight of what truly matters: protecting the people we serve. Project Genesis was intended to make the world safer, but in reality it did the opposite. Today I am taking steps to correct that mistake. Effective immediately, Project Genesis will be shut down, and its resources redirected toward initiatives aimed at supporting underprivileged communities. When the statement went live later that day, the reaction was swift. News outlets covered the story extensively, praising Marcus for his transparency and accountability. Social media lit up with comments from activists and community leaders who had long criticized the project. Some called it a victory for justice, while others remained skeptical, wondering if Marcus's change of heart was genuine or just a PR move. Marcus didn't care about the criticism. For once, he wasn't thinking about his reputation or his bottom line. He was thinking about Nia, and about the countless lives affected by Project Genesis. If shutting it down could prevent even one wrongful arrest or one family from being torn apart, it would be worth it. Later that afternoon, Marcus visited Olivia again. She was awake now, though still weak. When she saw him walk into the room, she smiled faintly. "How are you feeling?" Marcus asked, pulling a chair close to her bedside. "Better," Olivia replied softly. "The doctors say I'll make a full recovery." Marcus nodded, relief washing over him. "That's great news." Olivia studied his face carefully. "You look different. What happened while I was out?" Marcus hesitated before answering. How could he explain everything that had transpired without sounding like he was exaggerating? Finally, he decided to tell her the truth. From Nia Carter's arrival to the shutdown of Project Genesis. "She sounds remarkable," Olivia said when he finished. "She is," Marcus agreed. "I don't think I'll ever forget her." Olivia reached out and took his hand. This could be a turning point for you, Marcus. You've always wanted to leave a legacy. Why not make it one of kindness instead of profit? Her words stayed with him long after their conversation ended. That night, unable to sleep, Marcus found himself pacing the halls of his penthouse. His mind kept drifting back to Nia, the way she carried herself with quiet confidence, the way she spoke with such conviction. She had come from nothing and yet achieved so much. Meanwhile, he had grown up with every advantage imaginable and still managed to lose sight of what was important. Inspired by Nia's courage, Marcus began drafting plans for a new initiative. He would use part of his fortune to create scholarships for underprivileged youth interested in STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math. It would be called the Carter Fellowship, named in honor of the young woman who had changed his life forever. Over the following weeks, Marcus threw himself into the project. He partnered with schools and nonprofit organizations across the country, identifying talented students who lacked the resources to pursue their dreams. The fellowship would cover tuition, books, and living expenses, giving recipients the support they needed to succeed. Word of the Carter Fellowship spread quickly, drawing praise from educators and activists alike. Many saw it as proof that Marcus Kane was serious about changing, not just his company but himself. Still, there was one thing Marcus couldn't stop thinking about: finding Nia. He wanted to thank her personally for everything she had done. More than that, he wanted to let her know how much she had inspired him. Using the information Dr. Ava Monroe's team provided, Marcus tracked Nia down to a small community center in downtown Chicago. She was teaching a free science workshop for kids, helping them build simple robots out of household items. Watching her interact with the children, Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. She looked up and noticed him standing near the door. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. Then Nia smiled, a small, knowing smile, and waved him inside. "You didn't have to come here," she said when he approached. "Yes, I did," Marcus replied. "I wanted to thank you, not just for saving Olivia, but for everything." Nia shrugged modestly. "I just did what anyone would have done." "No," Marcus said firmly. "You did far more than that. You reminded me of what really matters." They talked for a while, sharing stories about their lives and hopes for the future. Marcus told her about the Carter Fellowship and how he hoped it would inspire others the way she had inspired him. Nia listened quietly, her eyes shining with pride. When it was time to leave, Marcus extended his hand. "If there's ever anything you need, don't hesitate to ask." Nia shook her head. "I don't need anything, just keep doing what you're doing. That's all the thanks I need." As Marcus walked away, he realized that Nia Carter wasn't just a hero. She was a teacher. She had shown him that true success wasn't measured by wealth or power, but by the positive impact you leave on the world. And for the first time in years, Marcus felt hopeful about the future. Nia Carter loved teaching. It wasn't part of her official job description. She didn't get paid for it, and no one expected her to spend her weekends running workshops at the community center. But she did it anyway. For Nia, there was nothing more rewarding than seeing a child's face light up when they figured out how something worked. Whether it was building a tiny robot or understanding why baking soda reacted with vinegar, every discovery mattered. That Saturday morning, the community center buzzed with energy. A dozen kids sat around tables scattered with wires, batteries, and spare parts. Some were working together in pairs, while others focused intently on their own creations. Nia moved between them, offering guidance and encouragement whenever needed. "Remember," she said to a boy struggling to attach gears to his motor, "it's okay if it doesn't work perfectly the first time. Science is all about trial and error." The boy nodded, determination written across his face as he tried again. Moments later, his little car sputtered to life, rolling forward a few inches before stopping. He looked up at Nia, grinning ear to ear. "I did it," he exclaimed. "You sure did," Nia replied with a proud smile. "Now see if you can make it go even farther." As she turned to help another student, Nia caught sight of Marcus Kane standing near the doorway. At first, she thought she might be imagining things. He didn't exactly blend into this environment. But when their eyes met, she realized it was really him, "What are you doing here?" Nia asked as she approached him. Marcus stepped inside, looking slightly out of place in his tailored suit among the casual chaos of the workshop. "I wanted to see where you spend your time," he admitted, "and maybe learn a thing or two, yeah?" Raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. Instead, she handed him a pair of safety goggles. "If you're staying, you might as well pitch in." For the next hour, Marcus found himself immersed in a world far removed from boardrooms and billion-dollar deals. He helped a girl connect circuits to power a small light bulb, cheered on a boy testing his homemade catapult, and even attempted to build a basic robot alongside Nia. Despite his lack of experience, the kids treated him like any other volunteer, laughing at his mistakes and celebrating his successes. At one point, Nia leaned over to check on his progress. "Not bad for a beginner," she teased. "Thanks," Marcus replied, wiping sweat from his brow. "Though I think I've discovered my limits," Nia chuckled. "Science isn't about being perfect, it's about curiosity and persistence. You'd be surprised what you can accomplish when you refuse to give up." Her words stayed with Marcus long after the workshop ended. As the kids packed up their projects and headed home, he lingered behind, helping Nia tidy up the room. "You're good with them," he said finally. "They're good with me," Nia corrected. Kids have this natural ability to believe in possibilities. They remind me why I fell in love with science in the first place. Marcus nodded slowly. "Do you ever think about doing this full-time?" "Teaching, I mean." Nia paused, considering the question. "Sometimes, but I also know that labs like Dr. Monroe's are important too. We need people working on solutions to big problems, not just teaching others how to solve smaller ones." "That doesn't mean you can't do both," Marcus pointed out. Nia smiled faintly. "Maybe someday." They continued cleaning in companionable silence until the room was spotless. Then Nia turned to Marcus, crossing her arms. "So what's next for you? Now that Project Genesis is officially done, will you go back to business as usual?" Marcus shook his head. "No. I'm done chasing profits without purpose. Thanks to you, I've realized that my resources can be used to make a real difference. That's why I started the Carter Fellowship, to give kids like these a chance to pursue their dreams." Nia's expression softened. "That's incredible, Marcus. Really, but don't lose sight of why you're doing it. It's not about making yourself look good, it's about empowering others." "I know," Marcus said earnestly. "And I won't forget that. Not after everything you've shown me." They stood there for a moment, the weight of their shared experiences hanging in the air between them. Finally, Nia broke the silence. "You should come back sometime," she said lightly. "The kids could use someone like you, someone willing to listen and learn." Marcus smiled. "I'd like that." Later that evening, as Marcus drove home, he couldn't stop thinking about the day. Spending time at the community center had been eye-opening. The kids were so eager to learn, so full of potential, and yet many of them lacked the opportunities they deserved. It made him even more determined to ensure the Carter Fellowship succeeded. When he arrived at his penthouse, Olivia was waiting for him. She had been discharged from the hospital earlier that week and was slowly regaining her strength. "How was your day?" she asked, curling up on the couch beside him. "It was humbling," Marcus admitted. "I spent the afternoon volunteering at a community center with Nia. Watching her teach those kids reminded me of how much work still needs to be done." Olivia nodded thoughtfully. "She sounds like an amazing person." "She is," Marcus agreed. "I wish I could repay her somehow, but I don't think she'd accept anything from me. All she cares about is making the world better." "Well, maybe that's enough," Olivia suggested. "Sometimes the best way to thank someone is to honor their values." Marcus considered her words. Olivia was right. Nia didn't want recognition or rewards. She wanted action, and that's exactly what he intended to deliver. Over the next few weeks, Marcus threw himself into expanding the Carter Fellowship. He reached out to schools, universities, and nonprofit organizations across the country, spreading the word about the program. Applications poured in from talented students eager to pursue careers in STEM fields. Reading through their stories, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. These were the future leaders, innovators, and problem solvers, and thanks to Nia, he had a chance to support them. Meanwhile, Nia continued her work quietly, unaware of the ripple effect she had created. Her workshops remained a staple at the community center, drawing more participants each week. Parents praised her dedication, and local businesses began donating supplies to keep the program running. One evening, as Nia locked up the center after another successful session, she noticed an envelope taped to the door. Curious, she opened it and found a handwritten note inside. "Dear Nia, thank you for reminding me of what truly matters. Because of you, hundreds of kids will have the opportunity to chase their dreams. Keep changing the world, one experiment at a time." Marcus' tears welled up in Nia's eyes as she read the message. She hadn't expected gratitude, let alone acknowledgement. But knowing that her actions had inspired someone like Marcus filled her with hope. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy for either of them, but together they had taken the first step toward a brighter future. The Carter Fellowship inaugural ceremony was held on a crisp autumn afternoon. Marcus had chosen the date carefully, wanting it to coincide with the start of the school year, a time of new beginnings. The event took place in a grand auditorium at one of Chicago's most prestigious universities, donated free of charge after hearing about the fellowship's mission. Rows of chairs stretched across the hall, each seat occupied by excited students, proud parents, teachers, and community leaders. At the front of the room sat the first cohort of fellows, bright-eyed teenagers and young adults who represented the future of science and innovation. They clutched their acceptance letters tightly, some nervously adjusting their ties or smoothing their dresses as they waited for the program to begin. On stage, Marcus stood behind a podium, scanning the crowd with a mix of pride and gratitude. This moment felt surreal to him. Just months ago, he had been consumed by corporate greed and blind ambition. Now, here he was, dedicating his wealth and influence to helping others succeed. It was a transformation he owed entirely to Nia Carter. The ceremony began. An MC introduced Marcus to give the opening remarks. He stepped up to the microphone, clearing his throat before speaking. "Thank you all for being here today," he started, his voice steady but warm. "When I first envisioned the Carter Fellowship, I wanted it to be more than just a scholarship program. I wanted it to be a symbol of hope, a reminder that no matter where you come from, your dreams are valid. And that's because of one person, Nia Carter." The audience erupted into applause, many turning to look at Nia, who sat near the front row. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, unused to being the center of attention. When Marcus invited her to join him on stage, she hesitated briefly before making her way up. Once there, Nia glanced out at the sea of faces looking back at her. For someone who preferred staying in the background, this was overwhelming. But seeing the excitement in the eyes of the fellows seated below gave her courage. "I'm not great at speeches," Nia admitted with a small laugh, earning chuckles from the crowd. "But what I can tell you is this. Every single one of you has potential beyond measure. Don't let anyone or anything convince you otherwise. Science isn't just about equations or experiments. It's about solving problems and improving lives. So dream big, work hard, and never stop asking questions." Her words resonated deeply with everyone present. Parents wiped away tears, students nodded in agreement, and even Marcus found himself blinking back emotion. Afterward, the ceremony continued with presentations and speeches from educators and community leaders. Each speaker emphasized the importance of supporting underrepresented voices in STEM fields. By the end of the event, the energy in the room was electric. Later that evening, Marcus hosted a small reception in the university's courtyard. String lights hung overhead, casting a soft glow over tables laden with food and drinks. Students mingled with mentors, sharing stories and exchanging ideas. Laughter echoed through the space, creating a sense of unity and purpose. Nia wandered through the crowd, stopping occasionally to chat with attendees. Many of the fellows approached her, eager to express their gratitude. "You're the reason we're here," said a teenage girl named Mia, her voice filled with admiration. "If it weren't for people like you showing us what's possible, I wouldn't have believed I could do this." Nia smiled gently. It's not about me. You earned this through your own hard work. Remember that. Mia nodded, determination shining in her eyes. Meanwhile, Marcus observed the scene from a distance, struck by how much Nia seemed to inspire those around her. He joined her eventually, handing her a glass of sparkling water. You handled yourself well up there, he said, nodding toward the stage. Nia shrugged modestly. I just spoke from the heart. That's all anyone can do. Marcus studied her, thoughtfully. Do you ever wonder what might have happened if someone hadn't seen your potential when you were younger? All the time, Nia admitted. Which is why nights like this mean so much to me. These kids deserve a chance to shine just like I did. They stood together for a while, watching the festivities unfold. Eventually, Marcus broke the silence. I've been thinking, he began, about expanding the fellowship beyond scholarships, maybe setting up labs or research grants specifically for projects aimed at underserved communities. That's a great idea, Nia replied enthusiastically. Imagine the impact we could have if these students had access to real-world tools and resources. Exactly, Marcus said. But I'll need help making it happen. Someone who understands both the science and the community. Nia raised an eyebrow. Are you asking me to get involved? Marcus grinned. Would you consider it? For a moment, Nia didn't respond. She looked out at the crowd again, taking in the joy and optimism radiating from the fellows. Then she turned back to Marcus. I'd be honored, she said simply. Over. The following months, Nia became an integral part of the Carter Fellowship team. Her role evolved from occasional advisor to full-time director, overseeing everything from curriculum development to mentorship programs. Under her leadership, the initiative flourished. Labs were established in partnership with local universities, providing hands-on experience for students. Grants were awarded to support innovative projects addressing issues like clean water access, renewable energy, and healthcare disparities. Word of the fellowship spread quickly, drawing interest from across the country. Applications doubled within a year, forcing Marcus and Nia to expand the program further. Together, they traveled to schools and conferences, spreading awareness and inspiring others to take action. Through it all, their friendship deepened. Marcus marveled at Nia's ability to connect with people, whether they were struggling students or skeptical investors. Nia, in turn, admired Marcus's willingness to learn and grow. Though they came from vastly different worlds, they shared a common goal: to create opportunities for those who needed them most. One evening, as they wrapped up a long day of meetings, Marcus turned to Nia with a question. Do you think we're making a difference? Nia paused, considering the question carefully. Yes, she said finally. Not because of any one thing we've done, but because we've shown people that change is possible. That's what matters. Marcus nodded, satisfied with her answer. As they walked out into the cool night air, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead would undoubtedly have its challenges, but with Nia by his side, he knew they could overcome anything. Together, they were proving that true success wasn't measured by wealth or power. It was measured by the lives you touched along the way. Years passed, and the Carter Fellowship grew into something far greater than Marcus Kane could have ever imagined. What started as a small scholarship program had transformed into a nationwide movement, empowering thousands of students from underserved communities to pursue careers in STEM fields. Labs were established in cities across the country, offering hands-on training and mentorship programs. Research grants funded groundbreaking projects aimed at solving real-world problems, from climate change to healthcare access. Through it all, Nia Carter remained at the heart of the initiative. Her leadership inspired not only the students but also the mentors and educators who worked alongside her. She became a role model for countless young people, proving that determination and resilience could overcome even the toughest obstacles. Marcus watched her success with pride, knowing that none of this would have been possible without her vision and dedication. Over time, he found himself changing too. The man who once chased profits above all else now spent his days advocating for social justice and equality. Together, he and Nia formed a partnership built on mutual respect and shared values, a bond stronger than either of them had anticipated. One crisp autumn evening, after a long day of meetings, Marcus suggested they take a break and go for a walk. They ended up at a nearby park, its pathways lined with towering trees shedding their colorful leaves. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of earth and wood smoke. They found a bench near the edge of the park, overlooking the distant city skyline bathed in the warm glow of sunset. For a while, neither of them spoke, content to simply sit together in silence. Finally, Marcus broke the quiet. "Do you ever think about how different things might have been if we hadn't met?" Nia tilted her head thoughtfully. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but I try not to dwell on what-ifs. We've done so much good. It's better to focus on that." Marcus nodded, gazing out at the horizon. "You're right. Still, I can't help feeling grateful. You saved Olivia's life, yes, but you also saved mine in a way. Before you came along, I was lost. I didn't know what truly mattered anymore." Nia smiled softly. "I didn't do anything special. I just reminded you of what was already inside you. Deep down, you always wanted to make a difference. You just needed a push." "That may be true," Marcus said with a chuckle, "but it takes someone extraordinary to give that kind of push." They lapsed into silence again, watching as the sun dipped lower in the sky. The city lights began to twinkle in the growing darkness, a reminder of the world they were working to improve. After a moment, Nia turned to him. "What's next for you? Now that the fellowship is thriving, do you have other plans?" Marcus shrugged. "I'll keep supporting the fellowship, of course, but beyond that, I'm not sure. Maybe I'll write a book or start speaking at conferences. I want to keep sharing the lessons I've learned, that it's never too late to change, and that everyone has the power to make a difference." Nia nodded approvingly. "That sounds like a good plan. And what about your family? Olivia and the baby?" At the mention of his wife and child, Marcus's face softened. "They're doing great. Olivia's back to full strength and little. Emily is growing up fast. She's already showing an interest in science, probably because of all the stories she hears about the fellowship." Nia laughed. "Maybe one day she'll join us." "Maybe," Marcus agreed, smiling at the thought. For a while longer they sat side by side, enjoying the peace of the evening. Eventually Nia stood, brushing leaves off her jeans. "I should get going," she said. "There's still work to do." Marcus rose as well, extending a hand. "Thank you again, for everything." Nia shook her head, refusing to let him thank her once more. "Just promise me one thing," she said firmly. "Anything. Keep fighting for what's right. Don't ever stop." Marcus met her gaze, his expression serious. "I promise." With that, Nia turned and walked away, disappearing into the twilight. Marcus watched her go, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. He knew he might not see her often in the future. Her life was busy and so was his, but he also knew that her influence would stay with him forever. As he made his way back to his car, Marcus reflected on how much had changed since that fateful night when Nia Carter walked into his life. She had saved his wife, challenged his worldview, and inspired him to become a better version of himself. Through her actions, she had taught him that true success wasn't measured by wealth or fame, but by the positive impact you leave on the world. Back home, Olivia greeted him with a smile. Little Emily toddled over, holding up a drawing she'd made earlier that day. It depicted a rocket ship soaring toward the stars, surrounded by stick figures labeled Daddy, Mommy, and me. "What's this?" Marcus asked, kneeling to admire the artwork. "It's our family," Emily explained proudly. "We're explorers," Marcus chuckled, pulling her into a hug. "That's right, sweetheart. Explorers looking for ways to make the world brighter." Olivia joined them, wrapping her arms around both of them. "And we're just getting started," she added warmly. In that moment, Marcus felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Yes, there would always be challenges ahead, inequalities to address, injustices to fight, but he no longer feared them. With People like Nia Carter leading the charge, and with his own family by his side, he knew they could face anything. The road to change was long, but every step mattered. And thanks to Nia, Marcus had finally found his place on it.